fellow citizens, our way of life, our very freedom came under attack in a series of deliberate and deadly terrorist acts.
Several shots were fired as President Kennedy's motorcade passed through downtown Dallas.
None of us will ever forget this day. Yet we go forward to defend freedom and all that is good and just in our world.
This is Houston. Say again, please. Houston, we've had a problem.
Ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country.
I have a dream. My 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream today.
Welcome to the Hagmann Daily Show, weekdays 2 to 3 p.m. Eastern Time. And now your hosts, Joe Hagmann and Jon Robberson.
Hello and welcome to this Monday, April 16th, 2018 edition of the Hagmann Daily Show. Joe Hagmann here, flying solo today as John is making his way back to the Hagmann studios from his trip on the West Coast. But even without him today, we got a whole lot to get into. I'm going to throw a number of topics out there and kind of give you an idea of where we're going to take the show today. We're going to obviously talk about what happened Friday in Syria, the president launching missiles in Syria. We're going to get into that. Also, there is a French report. The French have released a report on what they say is evidence of the Syrian gas attack being perpetrated by Assad. France releases assessment of attack. And we're going to read what this 7-page report says because it's very interesting as far as what they don't provide and how they word their accusations. It's very vague and there is nothing as far as proof that is offered. So we're going to go through that. We're also going to talk about President Trump and his support after this missile attack, something he condemned in the campaign that he ran, something he talked about he would not do, something he criticized President Obama for doing, and that was the intervention in Syria. And we're going to talk about how this will affect not only the 2018 midterm elections, but possible Trump support in the 2020 elections. James Comey had his interview this Sunday on ABC with George Stephanopoulos, and it aired, and we're going to talk about what he said, as he said some very interesting things. We're going to listen to a few excerpts of the article of the interview, and we're going to go over that. We're also going to talk about the FBI and DOJ corruption throughout the 2016 presidential election and into today with the Robert Mueller investigation and the attacks that the president is under not only in the media, but they're also the attacks on Trump's lawyer, Michael Cohen. And we're going to get into a piece on the New York Post. The feds say Michael Cohen is barely even a lawyer. And we're going to talk about their presentation of this. Also, the Department of Justice, how the Obama Justice Department tried to shut down the FBI's investigation into the Clinton Foundation. But first, I want to open with this. Art Bell, the founder of Coast to Coast, passed away just a few days ago at 72. And this is a huge loss as myself personally, grew up listening to Coast. My father, on many occasions, would get me up early before school just so we could listen to Coast. And a lot of time we spent in the car doing private investigation work. We would always listen whenever it was on. And George Norrie now hosts Coast to Coast, but it will never be the same since the passing of Art Bell, or since he left the show, but now he has passed away. And there's a very interesting phone call he received while he was host of Coast to Coast in 1997. Syndicated talk show host Art Bell received a frantic call from a man claiming to have worked in Area 51. And the entire radio station was zapped off the air as soon as the caller began to reveal detailed plans concerning aliens, the government, and the population. I'm sure many of our listeners have heard this before, but just to take a trip down memory lane, I want to play some of this at least into the point where he gets cut off and then brings it back. So let's listen to a little bit. This is probably the most famous call that Art Bell had.
Hello, Art.
Yes.
Hi. I don't have a whole lot of time.
Well, look, let's begin by finding out whether you're using this line properly or not.
Area 51.
Yeah, that's right. Were you an employee or are you now?
A former employee.
Former employee.
I was let go on a medical discharge about a week ago, and I've kind of been running across the country. Oh man, I don't know where to start. They're gonna they'll triangulate on this position really soon.
So you can't spend a lot of time on the phone. So give us something quick.
Okay. Okay. What we're thinking of as aliens, Art, they're extra-dimensional beings that an earlier precursor of the space program made contact with. They are not what they claim to be. They have infiltrated a lot of aspects of the military establishment, particularly the Area 51. The disasters that are coming, the military. I'm sorry, the government knows about them, and there's a lot of safe areas in this world that they could begin moving the population to now, Art.
But they're not doing anything.
They are not. They want the major population centers wiped out so that the few that are left will be more easily controllable.
Discharge.
This is where
I started getting.
This is where the whole radio station was shut off or shut down. And this is them coming back with the intro music. And then I'll cut it off after Art Bell brings it back.
And we're on a backup system now.
It's the government, or
I don't know.
it has to be something, though.
Well, did you hear? Now, you tell me because you were listening.
That was awful strange.
There was a...
All right, there we go. We'll cut it off there. Folks who want to listen to the rest of that, or go back and listen to many of the hundreds of hours of coast-to-coast coverage, those archives are available. I don't have the information as to where to get them right off the top of my head, but that is a piece of radio history. And Art Bell, again, was 72. He captivated his listeners with fascination for the unexplained, such as UFOs, alien abductions, crop circles. He died at his home Friday at the age of 72. And this is, I'm reading from the Las Vegas Review-Journal. If you want, reviewjournal.com. If you want, you can find the articles there as far as more information on Art Bell. But either way, it's a huge loss, and he certainly will be missed. And his contribution, whether you agree with the content or not, was it changed the landscape of the radio world, and it also, I would say, helped launch the alternative media. But with that said, let's get into what's going on with Syria. As we had seen Friday, airstrikes launched by the president, and there is a lot of backlash from his supporters, and rightfully so. He said he would never, first and foremost, when he was not even president, before he even ran in 2013, when a similar situation happened, when the Obama administration made their red line comments, Citizen Trump, decried Obama's actions and told him not to get involved in Syria, not to strike Syria, especially without congressional approval. And I wish he would have listened to, in his own words, also in 2016, saying the same thing, because it appears as though he has fallen victim to believing a lie, that being a false flag attack carried out by some, if it was even carried out by someone other than Assad for the purposes of trying to blame Assad only 10 days after the president said he was withdrawing the last of the 2,000 troops from Syria. Obviously, this is a push of the globalist agenda, and this is what they do. This is their MO. And we're going to break down what happened with these strikes and how the president looks as far as his base in just a moment. But I want to get here first. The country of France released its chemical attack of April 7th, 2018 assessment. And it is 7 pages long, and it lists, I think, 5 or 7 points that they talk about it, or 5 points, and they are as follows. Let's just go through the points, and then we'll read some of the details in these points. 1. Several chemical attacks took place at Duma on April 7th, 2018. 2. Given in particular ongoing military operations in eastern Ghouta around 7th of April, we assess a high degree of confidence that the Syrian regime holds responsibility. Again, we assess with a high degree of confidence that the pro-Assad forces are at fault. 3. The French services have no information to support the theory whereby the armed groups in Ghouta would have sought to acquire or have possessed chemical weapons. Now, this is not... It's a misstatement, as the rebels were caught 2 weeks before with chemical weapons, and not only that, with plans and of the attacks they were going to carry out. And True News was one of the people organizations to report this. And also, listen to this. We have a news clip here from RT that we're going to play. A warning which indicated a rebel attack would take place in the same area where the latest attack was alleged to have happened. And what did I do here? When I must have updated the episode, I did not include the video. Geez, I got to go back and fix that. That's been up on the website since Saturday. So I'm going to find this. But what's so interesting about this is Rick Wiles reported on this, that there was going to be a attempted chemical weapons attack that was going to blame Assad, and they captured the rebels' plans. They had captured the rebels' own supplies of this. Now I'm gonna have to. This is gonna. I'm gonna fix this after the show, as soon as the show's over. And I'll update it on the website. But apparently, I did not put the video in the link. But there's a video from RT, a report from RT from March, that states that the rebels had used and also had plans and other things confiscated that showed that they had access to these same chemical weapons, and that they were going to use these agents in an attempt to blame President Assad. So, but okay, back to the French, France's report. That was 3. 4. The Syrian regime has conserved a clandestine chemical weapons program since 2013, and 5, a series of chemical attacks has taken place in Syria since April 4th, 2017. Okay, so let's go through what they offer as proof as to Syria and Assad's responsibility for these chemical attacks. They go on to say, under number 1, that several attacks took place. They say, after examining videos and images of victims first published online, we were able to conclude with a high degree of confidence that the vast majority are recent and not fabricated, meaning the video footage that they saw, they believe it was not fabricated. Okay, so that's one point. And then it goes on to say, French experts analyzed the symptoms identifiable in the images and videos that were made public, and they're consistent with those of a chemical attack. No deaths were visible. All the symptoms were characteristic of a chemical weapons attack. So again, they're just assuming and speculating based on the footage that they've observed in the videos. They did not run any tests. They don't have any other intelligence or information that shows any kind of involvement with Assad or the pro-Syrian army. They are just alleging based on the White Helmets videos that was provided to them. This is completely unacceptable. So then they go on for number 2. Given in particular ongoing military operations in East Ghouta, we assess with a high degree of confidence that the Syrian regime holds responsibility. And this is what they say. Reliable intelligence indicates that the Syrian military officials coordinated what appears to be the use of a chemical weapon containing chlorine attack on Douma. So they, again, what appears to be. Then they go on to talk about Russia and how these two groups, a ceasefire agreement was made, and there was 4,000 hostages. They were negotiating a peace deal, if you will, between the rebels and the army. And this was something that was, they just had not finalized it or shown how they were going to evacuate these areas. But then they go on. Number 3, French services have no information to support the theory whereby as armed groups in Ghouta would have sought to acquire or possess chemical weapons. And again, they're just speculating. They say the French services also assess that manipulation of images circulated massively from Saturday the 7th in April is not credible because, in part, the groups present in Ghouta do not have the resources to carry out an operation of that scale. And this is an insult to everybody's intelligence. These people are these evil globalists, and the people who we have been funding these rebels, these ISIS fighters. We have been giving them arms. We have been giving them support. Don't think for a second that these people would not fabricate terror attacks. We've seen video after video after video where they have fabricated terror attacks, where they have, fabricated chemical weapons attacks. And you cannot say that that evidence that the rebels didn't do it is because the French believe they don't have the resources to acquire chemical weapons or to fabricate video evidence. Anyway, number 4, the Syrian regime has conserved a clandestine chemical weapons program since 2013. And they go on to say French assesses that Syria did not declare all of its stockpiles and chemical weapons capabilities in October of 2013. And then they go on to say that Syria omitted some of the chemical weapons and did not dump all of them under that agreement. Now, and then they offer no supporting evidence of that fact. Now, number 5, a series of chemical attacks have taken place in Syria since April 4th, 2017. It goes on to cite evidence from the last chemical attack, which we already know, according to General Mattis and others, was never able to be proven that it was by Assad or pro-Syrian forces. So they're using a lie in order to further, as evidence of another lie. And this is completely ridiculous. So at the conclusion here, the last paragraph, let's read what they say. On the basis of this overall assessment and on the intelligence collected by our services and in the absence to date of chemical samples analyzed by our own laboratories, so they don't even have any chemical samples to test. Why? Where are the dead bodies? How come you cannot test the toxicology of the people who died? How come you cannot test, the residue of where this happened? And we're going to get to that after I read the rest of this paragraph. It goes on to say, France therefore considers that, beyond possible doubt, a chemical attack was carried out against civilians on April 7, 2018, that there is no plausible scenario other than that of an attack by Syrian armed forces as part of a wider offensive in eastern Ghouta. The Syrian armed and security forces also are considered to be responsible for other actions in the region as part of the same offensive in 2017-2018. Russia has undeniably provided active military support in Ghouta. Moreover, it provided constant political cover to the Syrian regime over the employment of chemical weapons. It's absolutely ridiculous. And again, what they say, after examining the videos and images of victims published online, they were able to conclude with a high degree of confidence that the vast majority are recent and not fabricated. The spontaneous circulation of these images all across social networks confirms that they were not video montages or recycled images. Lastly, some of the entities that published this information are generally considered reliable. And they go on to say that same excuse, they use that same excuse again, where they say a non-governmental medical organization active in Ghouta, the Syrian American Medical Society, whose information is generally reliable, publicly stated that strikes were targeted, in particular, local medical infrastructure. And on and on and on. So this is up on Hagmann Report, the report and the link to the PDF, but it just shows you what a joke that the French, the globalists in general, what a joke it is that they can present something like this as some kind of proof of guilt toward Assad, when in reality this, if anything, casts more doubt on what really happened in Syria. Now let's go to a report from this morning from RT. U.S., UK, and France evidence against Syria questions their reliability. Here we go.
The U.S. envoy to the global chemical weapons watchdog, the OPCW, says Russia might have tampered with the site of the alleged chemical attack. That's according to a statement obtained by the Reuters news agency. Russia's foreign minister denies those allegations. Let's get more on that now from correspondent Jacqueline Vuga. Hi, Jackie. What exactly has Sergei Lavrov had to say?
Well, he flat out denied those accusations coming from the U.S. envoy, saying that he guarantees that Russia did not in any way tamper or manipulate the site of the alleged attack. Now, the U.S. envoy is referring to the fact that just a few days after this alleged attack took place, Russian military did send specialists to the site and search the area, and they said that they could find no traces of chemical weapons there. And since then, of course, Russia has been calling for an international independent investigation to take place on the ground, especially given that the initial reports of this alleged attack were coming from groups like the White Helmets, which has a very questionable reputation. Now, the OPCW, the Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons, did arrive to Syria already on Saturday, but it seems that they have yet to begin their investigation. A senior Russian official has said that the mission doesn't actually have the appropriate permit from the UN in order to access the site. Now, Sergei Lavrov also called out the reliability of the evidence that the US, the UK, and France relied on before carrying out those strikes in Syria.
You quoted the leaders of France and UK and the United States. And frankly speaking, all the evidence which they quoted was based on the media reports and on social networks.
He also added that the
There you go. All the evidence that was used was gathered from the images and the videos provided by the White Helmets and social media reports. Nothing substantial. And if you heard in the beginning of that clip, the one of the international investigative bodies was trying to claim that Russia tampered with the site, probably because they found no traces of any kind of chemical weapons. But here is, I fixed the link on Hagmann Report. Here is the video from March 17th, 2018. U.S. training Syria militants for false flag chemical attack as bases for airstrikes. Only 2 weeks before the alleged chemical gas attack, we see here that the Russian Defense Ministry says U.S. instructors are training militants to stage false flag chemical attacks in South Syria. The incidents are said to be a pretext for airstrikes on the Syrian government, troops, and infrastructure. Were these people prophets? Were they psychic? Fortune tellers? How did they know that we were going to see a false flag attack blamed on Assad and used as the basis for airstrikes on infrastructure in Syria? Let's take a quick listen to the 7-minute video. We're only going to play the first little bit of this.
Defense Ministry says rebel groups have been armed with chemical weapons in Syria and are planning to stage false flag attacks as a pretext for the U.S. to carry out airstrikes.
Representatives of the Russian armed forces have said they have reason to believe that the United States at its Al-Tanf base in Syria has been preparing squads of rebels, fighters, to stage a chemical provocation, a chemical weapons attack in the south of Syria, in Daraa, which borders Jordan and Israel. They've been provided, allegedly, as many as 20 tons of chlorine, as well as detonators disguised as cigarette packs. And this attack is imminent. Defense officials have said
pounds of chlorine. Let's listen to this again.
Disguised as cigarette pack, as many as 20 tons of chlorine, as well as...
So there you have it. And the rest of the video is up on Hagmann Report. I just edited it and put it back to the very top of the page, so you can go watch that video there. But, you know, all of this goes back to what we said at the beginning of the show. The president, what made him believe in the lie that Assad was somehow responsible, and also what led him to take military action and strike Syria, one, without congressional approval, but two, this goes against everything that he has stood for, and it is just a shock to so many of his supporters. Now, I'll say this, and I don't want to be a Trump defender, but think of the alternatives. We could have had Hillary Clinton. We could have Mike Pence. As bad as a decision as Trump made, it's not something, and since we saw, you know, we went through this last year. He, while sitting with the president of China, I think at Mar-a-Lago, eating dinner, struck a Syrian airbase with 57 or 59 Tomahawk missiles. And his supporters were up in arms about that, and that was the beginning and end of it. And it seems like things went back to normal. Now, we saw the huge outcry from his base that this is something that they're very upset about. But is it, when 2020 comes around and it's, you know, your choice between President Trump and Kamala Harris or whoever else the left rolls out, is what President Trump did on Friday something that's going to make you vote or make you want to vote for the Kamala Harris? So you got to ask yourself these questions, and we have to get the message to the president that this is not going to stand. And where the areas, I mean, his whole presidency has been marred by false scandals, by a attempted coup by the intelligence agencies, the Obama administration, and Hillary Clinton, who ran against him in 2016. And this kind of segues into what I want to get into next. James Comey interview with George Stephanopoulos aired this weekend, and we have 5 takeaways from Comey's big ABC News interview. This is by Ben Shapiro. On Sunday evening, former FBI Director Comey sat down for a 2-hour interview with Stephanopoulos to talk about his new book, A Higher Loyalty. The interview was choke-filled with quotable moments. Already, the media are going haywire over it. The president has signaled his own displeasure on Twitter. Here's what's important. 1. Comey's a political actor. Over and over again, Comey suggested that he allowed political considerations to impact his legal work. He says he decided to announce Hillary's non-indictment in order to avoid allowing the FBI to look like a tool for the Department of Justice after Loretta Lynch's tarmac meeting with President Clinton. He said that he took the polls into consideration when determining whether or not to inform the public about reopening the Hillary Clinton email investigation. 2. Comey hates Trump. And it goes on from there. He said it was a mistake to say that the president wasn't under investigation. Nonetheless, Comey spent the interview ripping Trump as a crime boss, tore into his physical appearance, called him a forest fire, and that suggested that Trump not be impeached but thrown out by voters. He goes on to say, number 3, Comey loves Obama and company. 3, Comey loves himself. 4, he is grandstanding. He admits he had no good reason for not telling Trump that the Steele dossier was funded by Hillary Clinton campaign. He also had no problem telling Stephanopoulos that Trump was morally unfit to be president. 5, Comey was upset he could have cost Hillary the election. He said over and over he was sick to my stomach over the FBI's interference into the election, and asked Hillary Clinton to read specific chapters of his book to see that he had good intentions. He even said he announced the reopening of the investigation because he thought she was leading in the polls and she was going to win, and that he didn't want her presidency tarnished if he did not do that. He also admitted as well that his daughters were big Hillary fans and that they all voted for her at the 2016 elections. And it's just horrible. Here, we're going to listen to just a few of Comey's statements.
Do you think President Trump has been compromised by the Russians?
I don't know. And these are words I never thought would come out of my mouth about an American president, but it's possible. I'm not saying it's likely. I don't know, and the honest answer is it's possible. It's hard to explain some things without at least leaving your mind open to that being a possibility.
What is the possibility that you see? What's the greatest possibility that he was?
Well, obviously, the most likely is that he's not. But the reason I say possible is that there's a non-zero possibility that the Russians have some sway over him that is rooted.
All right, that's part of an interview he did with USA Today that aired today, and there is pieces of the Stephanopoulos interview out there. I guess I just did not save that, but what we do, we go to newsbusters.org and we'll find some clips there. Here, Stephanopoulos whines to Comey about costing Hillary the election, recapping his Sunday night interview with former FBI Director Comey on Monday's Good Morning America. George Stephanopoulos, ABC anchor, and former Clinton White House political operative, complained that the ex-bureau chief's decision to reopen the Hillary Clinton email investigation in October of 2016 cost the Democrat the election. In a report at the very top of his morning show, Stephanopoulos highlighted how he grilled Comey about the Clinton investigation. Comey explains his thinking on the October surprise that Hillary believes cost her the White House. Why did he reveal he was reopening the email investigation? The host fretted. You could try to find out first whether or not there were indeed relevant, whether there was evidence of a crime. Comey replied, my view is that would be a potential deeply irresponsible and dangerous thing to do. Stephanopoulos pleaded, but we don't know what's in it. Comey explained, we were there. We know there were hundreds of thousands of Hillary Clinton emails. That's an affirmative act of concealment. And then it goes on from there. You can listen to this at Newsbusters. But he goes on to say that people should look at him as a good guy, that he was the one who tried to save the Hillary Clinton presidency. And not only that, after she became president, the reputation of her presidency, saying that if he did not reopen the investigation and she got elected, it would forever mar her presidency and it would be filled with scandals. But either way, it is just a crazy thing. And the Drudge was reporting that 9.7 million viewers watched the interview. But we'll get back to that. I want to move on first here and talk about what happened with President Trump's lawyer. We've been talking about all last week how the Robert Mueller investigation has expanded well beyond its scope and is just trying to find any crimes the president committed in any time of his life. But the raid on his attorney it takes the cake. And what we have learned, the New York Post put out a report on what the FBI is doing, and this is a hit piece on Michael Cohen. Listen to what this report says. The feds say Michael Cohen is barely even a lawyer. Michael Cohen is a fraud of a lawyer who works exclusively for President Trump. Federal prosecutors charged Friday. Cohen has told at least one witness that he has only one client, President Trump. The lawyers wrote in court documents challenging Cohen's claims that records seized in raids and on his home and office Monday should be protected by attorney-client privilege, and he's barely doing any legal work for Trump either, they claim. Now, we'll go on and continue to read this report that the FBI put out there, but you talk about the gall of these people, not only one, to raid the president's own personal lawyer, but to attack his accomplishments, to attack his profession, saying he's barely even a lawyer because he only has one client. If anything, that should bolster the president's claim of the attorney-client privilege being violated. If Cohen is Trump, if that's the only client that the Cohen has is President Trump and Donald Trump, which is understandable. When you talk about $1 billion real estate tycoon, he would have at least one, if not more, lawyers who solely work to protect his interest. It's not anything unordinary for someone like Trump to have a lawyer completely dedicated to him, but to call him a fraud because he only works for the president and to say that he's barely doing email work, well, what do they base that on that he's barely doing any legal work for Trump. Reviews of the records indicate that Cohen is in fact performing little to no legal work and that 0 emails were exchanged with President Trump, according to the brief filed in Manhattan federal court. So because there's no emails between Cohen and the president, that indicates that he's performing no legal work? It goes on from there. In fact, the criminal investigation into Cohen isn't about his work as a lawyer, but rather relates to Cohen's own business dealings. The claim came after Cohen's own attorney challenged the seizure of documents, which included records relating to Cohen's payments to porn actress Stormy Daniels. But when the judge demanded that Cohen's lawyer provide some proof that Cohen had any other clients beyond the commander-in-chief, they twice came back empty-handed. What I need to know is whether you have a basis as a representative of the court to know whether there were thousands and thousands of privileged documents, said Judge Kimba Wood. It's an estimate, replied Cohen's lawyer, Todd Harrison. That is my best understanding. I don't know the exact number, Your Honor. It might be less than 1,000. Wood ultimately demanded that Cohen's lawyers return Monday with a list of other clients and Cohen. So they're attacking him. They're attacking his ability to practice law because he only has one client. Let me see. Did he pass the Bar Association exam? Is he a licensed lawyer? And is he retained by Donald Trump? If all those things are true, then he is a lawyer. Whether he has one client or 1,000 clients is irrelevant. What's relevant is the fact that the attorney-client privilege was broken, especially in light of the fact that Cohen only might have Trump as a client. So all the information that they had seized would then be related to President Trump and Cohen's legal dealings. I don't get how they can get away with this. And there is no credibility. The FBI is so corrupt. I mean, just look at what we've been talking about. The James Comey interview. The guy, the leaker, the liar, who lied under oath, who leaked confidential and classified government information for the purposes of trying to damage Trump. The guy who was involved in absolving Hillary Clinton of any legal wrongdoing when she was guilty as sin and should have been charged criminally and put in jail. Not only for the email investigation where she destroyed evidence, where her lawyers were given immunity, but also in other investigations like this one. How the Obama Justice Department tried to shut down the FBI's investigation into Hillary Clinton. The Department of Justice Inspector General released a report Friday claiming lack of candor by Andrew McCabe. The report also detailed Justice Department's influence to close a multi-state investigation into the Clinton Foundation. The IG claims McCabe leaked DOJ's pressure to end the Clinton investigation to battle claims he was partial to the Clintons. The Department of Justice Inspector General's report on the lack of candor by Deputy Director of the FBI, Andrew McCabe, also documents for the first time the Obama administration's effort to shut down the Bureau's investigation of the Clinton Foundation, according to a review of the report by the Daily Caller News Investigative Group. The IG confirmed its long-awaited report released Friday that 2016, the FBI had ongoing field investigators of the Clinton Foundation in New York, L.A., Little Rock, Arkansas, and Washington, D.C. The multi-city investigation was launched when agents found suspicious activities between a foreign donor and Clinton Foundation activity in the Los Angeles area. The report, authored by Inspector General Horowitz, an Obama appointee, chronicles the Justice Department's effort to shut down the FBI's investigation on August 12, 2016. The pressure came in form of a phone call to McCabe from Justice Department Principal Associate Director, who pressed McCabe on continuing the investigation. It was important the pressure for ending the investigation was issued in a phone call and not in a written document, former FBI Assistant Director Ronald Hosko told the Daily Caller. And the report goes on from there. How much special attention and legal consideration have the Clintons received? If it were any one of us, if it were President Trump for that matter, he would be charged 7 ways till Sunday for the foundation, for the emails, and on and on and on. These people have been allowed to get away with murder, and they have shown no signs of stopping. And not only that, the FBI, the DOJ, and all the other personnel involved in these investigations were complicit for whatever reason in her criminality, whether it was because they thought she was going to become president, whether it was because they wanted to protect her and didn't want her to get in trouble. It's irrelevant, because what we have seen is that she has gotten away with crime after crime after crime after crime, even in the light of some of the biggest media publicity in the world. And then they have the nerve to turn around and to attack President Trump and attack his legal standing as president, to launch investigations to perpetrate a coup to remove him from office. This is the crazy world we are living in. Let's listen to last night's CBS Evening News report of ex-FBI Director James Comey suggesting that President Trump go to jail.
President Trump on Twitter today suggested fired FBI Director James Comey should be sent to jail. It's a preemptive strike against Comey's harsh assessment of the president in his new book. Mola Lenghi is at the White House.
President Trump continued his tweet attack on former FBI Director James Comey Sunday ahead of the release of Comey's explosive new memoir, or, as the president described it, Comey's badly reviewed book. According to President Trump, Slippery James Comey will go down as the worst FBI director in history, by far. Comey will launch a media blitz with the book release this week. In it, Comey explains his decision to reveal, just before the 2016 election, that the FBI had reopened the probe into the Hillary Clinton email scandal.
I was operating in a world where Hillary Clinton was going to beat Donald Trump. And so I'm sure that it was a factor. Like I said, I don't remember spelling it out, but it had to have been that she's going to be elected president, and if I hide this from the American people, she'll be illegitimate the moment she's elected, the moment this comes out.
Jim Comey, in my way thinking, is a good man who made a very consequential blunder.
Senator Tim Kaine was Clinton's running mate.
The FBI has two real clear rules. Don't talk about a pending investigation, and don't inject controversy right before an election. They didn't follow the rules with respect to Hillary Clinton.
Meanwhile, the president is still fuming about evidence seized from his personal attorney during an FBI raid, tweeting, "Attorney-client privilege is now a thing of the past." But the White House insists President Trump remains cool.
Look, the president is very confident in the fact that he has done nothing wrong, and he can't speak on behalf of anyone else, but he's very confident in what he has and hasn't done.
A federal judge has requested that Michael Cohen appear for a court hearing in New York tomorrow. This morning, adult film star Stormy Daniels' attorney said that Daniels will also attend. Of course, you remember Daniels was paid $130,000 by Cohen, she claims, hush money, to keep a 2006 sexual encounter with Mr. Trump quiet.
Blah, 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 blah. Hush money. Try again. It was a non-disclosure agreement that she agreed to, signed, and took the compensation. She then violated that agreement over 40 times, which she should be held accountable and charged. What is it, $1 million, I think, per violation? She should at least have to pay back the money. I mean, it's crazy. They're talking about an extramarital affair from 2006, which the person involved in the consensual relationship was given money and signed an agreement not to mention it again. But this is the basis for the raid on Michael Cohen's office. This and any documentation about the Access Hollywood tape. I mean, this is just crazy what we're seeing. And we can't say it enough that this is just a witch hunt. That's all this is. And at the same time, what we just detailed, all of the corruption under Hillary Clinton, all of the crimes that she has been guilty of, from Uranium One to the Haiti Earthquake Relief Fund thievery to the association with the Laura Silsby, the human trafficker from Haiti, to the email investigation, and on and on and on. The rigging of the primary, the attempted rigging of the 2016 presidential election, and it is just crazy and beyond our wildest dreams to see that President Trump is the one under investigation, and that these people have been successful in being able to protect Hillary Clinton from any accountability, even in the face of evidence of her guilt, overwhelming evidence of her guilt. And there is another piece of news from Fox News here on the Hillary Clinton campaign. FEC hit with lawsuit over ignoring civil complaint accusing Clinton DNC in election scheme. The Hillary Clinton campaign and the Democratic National Committee allegedly used state chapters as a straw man to launder as much as $84 million in an attempt to circumvent campaign donation limits, and the Federal Elections Commission's ignored complaints exposing the practice, a lawsuit filed Monday claims. The Committee to Defend the President, a political action committee formerly known as Stop Hillary PAC, filed its complaint with the FEC in December of 2017 with claims that the Hillary Clinton Victory Fund solicited cash from big-name donors and allegedly sent that money through state chapters and back to the DNC before ending up with the Clinton campaign. This is what we were talking about after Donna Brazil's book came out. This was what we were talking about her rigging the primaries. One, not only did she rig the primary and steal a nomination away from Bernie Sanders, but she also used the DNC as her own personal bank, taking donations that were gathered addressed to the DNC as her own personal campaign contributions, funneling them through each state branch of the DNC. Okay, back to the report here. As first reported by Fox News at the time, the CDP alleges in its complaint that about $84 million was funneled illegally from the DNC through state party chapters into the war chest of the Clinton campaign. The Political Action Committee claims even though the FEC acknowledged the receipt of the complaint and claimed that an investigation would be conducted, the needle has barely moved. The Clinton machine has escaped accountability for its illegal practices for far too long, Ted Harvey, the chairman of the CDP, said to Fox News. After months of reviews, the FEC has refused to address the Clintons' $84 million money laundering scheme that violated several campaign finance laws. On Monday, the CDP filed a lawsuit against the FEC with the District Court for the District of Columbia. They claim that the commission failed to act, calling the inaction arbitrary, as well as contrary to law and abuse of discretion. A copy of that suit obtained by Fox News urges the court to exercise its statutory authority under the Federal Election Campaign Act and take action against what they say is an unprecedented scheme to circumvent federal campaign finance laws. This is just, I keep saying this is crazy, and that's why I just paused there, because I needed to think of another way to word this. This is unbelievable. Will there ever be accountability with the Hillary Clinton campaigns? So let's say, and I don't know the answer to this, let's say that this complaint, this lawsuit goes through the proper channels and is found out that yes, she did launder this money or embezzle this money illegally. What will the consequences of those actions be? What are the possibilities? And it is just mind-boggling to see that she is not held not only personally responsible, not criminally responsible, but, and on and on and on. No accountability. Now, the report goes on to say, based on publicly available FEC records, repeatedly throughout the 2016 campaign, Hillary Clinton would transfer funds to its constituent political committees, which included between 34 and 40 state parties, reads a passage of the complaint. On the very same day each of these transfers supposedly occurred, or occasionally the very next day, every single one of those state parties purportedly contributed all of those funds to the DNC. The complaint filed said previous reports showed a series of transactions in which the HVF distributed contributions to its state party committee members, and they would receive the funds on the same day. They would also disperse those within 24 hours back to the Hillary Clinton campaign. The letter acknowledging the FEC complaint, or the complaint from the FEC, says you will be notified as soon as the Federal Elections Committee takes an action on your complaint, read the letter. Should you receive any of the information on this matter, please forward it to the Office of the General Counsel. A provision of federal campaign finance law requires that any commission action on an enforcement matter be kept strictly confidential until the case is resolved. That's a statement from the FEC to Fox News. To comply with this legal commitment and to protect the interests of those involved, we have a policy of not commenting on matters that are before the agency. So, all that to say this. Further proof that Hillary Clinton and the Hillary Clinton campaign laundered as much as $84 million to circumvent campaign finance laws. Another crime. Do you think for a second any of us laundering $84 million and not even a disorderly conduct criminal charge? It is truly mind-boggling. And this again shows the furthering of this corruption from the DOJ, from the FBI, all circling around this den of vipers, this Hillary Clinton criminal cabal. And it is just shocking that there is nothing that is seemingly enough to bring these people down. I mean, if Hillary Clinton started murdering babies on Times Square, would she get in trouble for it? Probably not. They would probably let her off the hook. But either way, it is just absolutely crazy to see how far we have come with putting up and tolerating this corruption. And a lot of it is the blame lays with us, because we need to hold these people accountable. And if our government's not going to do it, then the Constitution is very clear that it is left up to us to take care of that. And I'm talking about in a lawful way, but there is a time when the people need to step up and put their foot down. We cannot allow this continued corruption to erode the country that once was the beacon of freedom and hope. But now it seems that we are a cesspool of corruption, a true swamp, if you will. Switching gears here in the last few minutes of the show, I want to make sure we cover this. How online media companies are suppressing conservative speech. This is an awesome report from the Media Research Center, or Newsbusters as it's known, and it goes on to say the following. Like it or not, social media is the communication form of the future, not just in the U.S., but worldwide. Just like Facebook and Twitter, combined reach 1.8 billion people. More than a third of all Americans use Facebook. YouTube is pushing out TV as the most popular place to watch video. Google is the #1 search engine in both the U.S. and the world. War is being declared on the conservative movement, and this space and conservatives are losing badly. If the right is silenced, billions of people will be cut off from conservative ideas and conservative media, and really, the truth. It is the new battleground of media bias, but worse. The bias is not a war of ideas, it's a war against ideas. It's a clear effort to censor the conservative worldview from the public conversation. The Media Research Center has undertaken an extensive study of the problem at major tech companies, Twitter, Facebook, Google, YouTube. As the result, are far more troubling than most conservatives realize. Some of the findings are as follows. Twitter leads in censorship. Project Veritas recently caught Twitter staffers admitting on hidden camera that they've been censoring conservatives through a technique known as shadow banning. And it goes on to describe from there such things that they attempted to silence or suppress. Hashtags Podesta emails, hashtags DNC leak, America, and the word God. Number 2, Facebook trending feed has been hiding conservative topics. A Gizmodo story in 2016 warned of Facebook's bias. It had detailed claims of a former employee that Facebook news curators had been instructed to hide conservative content from the trending section. And the report goes on from there. The next one, Google search aids Democrats. Google and YouTube's corporate chairman Eric Schmidt had assisted Hillary Clinton's presidential campaign. The company's search engine had deployed a similar bias in favor of Democrats. One study had found 2016 campaign searches were biased in favor of Hillary Clinton. Even liberal website Slate had revealed the search engine results had favored both Clinton and Democratic candidates. They also go on to say that the engineer James Danmore that Google fired for criticizing the company says it has become an ideological echo chamber, and that this is advancing harmful stereotypes in our workplace. YouTube is shutting down conservative videos. Tech firms are relying on groups that hate conservatives. The ADL, Anti-Defamation League, the Southern Poverty Law Center are two of the best examples of that. The Southern Poverty Law Center is a self-proclaimed, hate organization, anti-hate organization, who purports some of the most hate out there, and they only target conservative platforms, and they go even as far to list anti-abortion advocates as hate groups. The next one, liberal Twitter advisors outnumber conservatives 12-1. And then from there, tech companies rely on anti-conservative fact checkers. Facebook and Google both had partnered with fact-checking organizations in order to combat fake news. Facebook's short-lived dispute flagger program has allowed Snopes, PolitiFact, and ABC News to discern what is and what is not real news. And the report goes on from there to suggest recommendations that could be implemented to stop some of this censorship. But will that ever happen? I don't believe so. We have seen for too long these companies continue to get away with this kind of behavior as they are able to continue to ban YouTube content creators. Facebook will ban or block or suspend. Twitter will shadow ban or delete your account or unverify you, and on it goes. And this is a something that we've seen continuing to increase in frequency with this censorship, and it is at the same time a challenge. It also opens itself up for new opportunities for the alternative media, as far as ways we can and outlets we can use to expand in the face of this censorship. Again, go to HagmannReport.com. The Occupy 2018 conference is coming up starting Friday, April 20th, just this week. And that is going to be from the 20th through the 22nd in Canton, Ohio. Myself will be speaking there along with several others, and it's going to be a great event. You can go to Coach Dave Live for tickets if you are interested in going. Again, it's just this Friday. So if you are close, make sure you get a chance to go. It's going to be a lot of fun. I also did a broadcast with Stephen Menking on Friday. I'm not sure when it is going to air, but check Hagmann Report throughout this week. I think he said he was going to be putting it up as soon as today, maybe tomorrow. But that was a good interview as we talked about a lot of subjects, including the alternative media and the direction we are going to be moving with this censorship. Tomorrow, John will be back on with me, and we're going to get into more of this President Trump, Syria, Middle Eastern situation. Where do we go from here? What can we expect in the future as far as the support for the president, and what will happen in the Middle East? Will Russia retaliate for the United States attacks on the facilities? And we're going to get more information as far as what facilities were actually targeted, and also go back and look more at those True News and other reports that indicated that the rebels, backed by U.S. intelligence or U.S. actors, were preparing for a false flag chemical weapons attack just weeks before this latest one took place. So thankfully, the airstrikes Friday night were the beginning and end of what we saw as far as our actions in Syria. And, again, the Trump base, rightfully so, outraged as he went against what he promised in the campaign, what he stated as a citizen against our foreign policy in Syria. And it's not a coincidence that John Bolton, the war hawk, the warmonger, is right there next to him. Just took his job as the national security advisor on Monday, the same weekend after this alleged chemical weapons attack happened. So, it'll be interesting to see what ramifications, what consequences there will be, if any, not only with other countries and policy towards other countries, but also with the Trump base. One last note, gas prices are going up. I don't know. We saw a nice decline in the price per barrel of oil, and it's risen suddenly, but we're starting to see this huge spike at the gas pumps where gas is $3 a gallon here now. What is going on with that in this booming economy? I don't know, but we're going to get to the bottom of that this week as well. Don't forget to support us by supporting our sponsors, simplycleanfood.net. Also, there's a PayPal link in the blog talk description, paypal.me Joe Hagmann. Thank you everybody for listening. We really appreciate your support. Again, John will be back with us tomorrow, and we're going to have a great week. We'll be dark on Friday because we'll be traveling for the conference, but either way, we'll be here until Thursday. So have a great day, everyone. We'll see you tonight.
The Hagmann Daily Show is brought to you by the Hagmann Report. Tune in to the Hagmann Report weekdays, 7 to 10 p.m. Eastern Time. For more information, go to HagmannReport.com. That's HagmannReport.com.